Good morning, everyone. It's a beautiful, sunny, and tranquil morning in Boston. It's so calm and peaceful. But thousands of miles away in the homeland of Israel, where our brothers and sisters, uncles and aunts live, there is no peace. There is no quiet. There is no tranquility. There is a barrage of hundreds of rockets into the center of Israel. Just this morning, 2 Israelis were killed and 5 injured. And the world remains quiet. I wish the world remained quiet, but the world doesn't remain quiet. The world singles out and criticizes Israel, the only sovereign state that gets criticized for protecting its citizens. And Friday we were sitting here before Shabbos, and one of my friends remarked to me, he says, Rabbi, he says, I love you and I support what you're saying, but I want you to know that I've been hearing people speaking that you're talking too strongly, and a while ago you criticized one of our senators for speaking against Israel. And he says, Rabbi, you're going to lose your viewers. If you speak so harshly and you're so unequivocal in your support for Israel, you might lose some viewers. So I wanted to really set the record straight. I actually wasn't asking you. I actually wanted to set the record straight. The words of the Megillah, the famous Megillah of Mordechai and Esther, ring so true in my ears at this moment. When the Jews were set for annihilation, and Mordechai came pleading with his niece, Esther, and said, please go to the king. And Esther said, my life might be in danger. The king hasn't called me in so long. What happens if he wants to do something to me? And Mordechai said these words to her. God will find salvation for the Jewish people. But if you keep quiet now, if you're going to keep quiet at this critical moment when your brothers and sisters need you, then you and your household will be lost. Your values, your standing up for your brothers and sisters, will be gone. Nowhere in the world is there a people more persecuted than the Jewish people. Nowhere in the world is there a greater minority than the Jewish people. And nowhere in the world, time and time again, does the only Jewish state get criticized for doing one thing only, trying to protect its citizens, its babies, its elders, its Holocaust survivors from being killed and murdered and butchered. Just a week ago, Israel went through the tremendous effort of postponing the eviction of the illegal homes in Sharai al-Jam. Just a week ago, Israel decided, and yesterday on Jerusalem Day, on the one day we celebrate the reunification of Jerusalem, Israel changed the route of the famous flag ceremony that marches through Jerusalem, not to provoke. We did everything we could for calm, for peace. But then, when we were attacked, when missiles were thrown our way, the world accused us. AOC, our own Congressman Jim McGovern, our two senators, Warren, Sanders, our neighboring senator, Markey, each one of them criticized Israel. For what? For protecting its citizens? For standing up? So I make clear today that even if I have no viewers, there's enough other people to view. There's enough other people to speak to. But if you're not ready to stand up for your people, if you're not ready to stand up for true social justice, for true caring for the minority, for those that are constantly under attack since the beginning of civilization, then just shut the video and don't come to my page. On Shavuot, we read one of the most remarkable stories. We read the story of Ruth and Arapah. We read Megillat Ruth, the Megillah of Ruth. Who's Ruth? Ruth was the great-grandmother of King David, the warrior of the Jewish people, stood up to the Philistines and stood up to Goliath. And the story is, of course, of this man Elimelech, who was a wealthy man, and he left Israel in power because of the hunger, and he went to the Philistines. And he went with his wife Naomi, and he had 2 sons, Machlon and Kilion. And they married these 2 princesses in Moab, one named Ruth and one named Arapah. And Elimelech lost his fortune. And then Elimelech died, and his 2 sons died. And here was Naomi left alone with her 2 daughters-in-laws from Moab. And she decided to make the arduous trip back to the Holy Land of Israel, to her people. She had nothing left. And Ruth and Arapah started going with her. And Naomi looks at her daughters-in-laws who were young, who were beautiful, who had their whole life ahead of them. Just listen, I'm old. I have no choice. I'm going back to my people. But you're young. You have your whole life in front of you. Why come to a country in poverty that's hated, that wants to be murdered? Stay here. And they walked 40 steps, and then Arapah listened to her. And Arapah kissed her and said goodbye. And Ruth looked at her mother-in-law and says, listen, where you go, I will go. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. And where you will be buried, I will be buried. I will not leave you, says the Talmud. Arapah, she kissed goodbye. She was loving. Yeah, I love you, Naomi, but I'm not ready to sacrifice for it. But Ruth was absolute in her conviction that she will stand by Naomi and be with her, and that her people will be the same people as Naomi's people. And God rewarded her for that commitment, that she gave birth to her grandson was King David. David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayam, who the Messiah will come from. Today is our day to stand up, to be counted. Are we going to be like Ruth, or are we going to be like Arapah? Are we going to tell Israel we love you? From a distance we'll kiss you, but we're not ready to stand up for you? We're not ready to criticize those who single out Israel constantly and don't stand up for its rights to protect its citizens? All these people who call for so-called care about justice and the underdog want us to let people kill us and murder us and not to fight back? How many people today in Massachusetts are going to call Congressman McGovern and say, how could he give such a false statement? How many people are going to email and call the offices of Senator Warren, of Senator Markey, and say, we want you to stand with the people that are trying to protect themselves and want peace, true peace, don't want violence? You know, I said this last time, and I don't mean to criticize it. If we're waiting for a statement from CJP, from JCRC, they're ready to kiss Israel, but they're not ready to get into the trenches. They will eventually. In 5 days, you'll get an email. But we have to stand and be counted today. We're coming to the holiday of Shavuot, when it says that the Jews rested near Mount Sinai, ki ish echad b'lev echad, like one person. It was the singular time in history that the Jews were united as one. Today we have to be united unequivocally. As brothers and sisters, speak up with one voice, a consistent voice, a constant voice. Speak up to our senators and our congressmen who are hypocritical, who cloak anti-Semitism and anti-Israel, who cloak caring for the underprivileged, for the underdog, for those that are in need, with hating Israel. And we have to speak up and say, we won't stand for this. Doesn't make a difference if you're Republican or Democrat. We want you to stand up for the greatest ally of America, who wants one thing, survival of its people. And Hashem rewards you for that. But it's not even about Hashem rewarding. I think to myself, my father was born in Jerusalem. My grandmother was killed there. My uncle was killed by the British because he went out after curfew to light menorah. I have hundreds of cousins, friends who are fighting as paratroopers, 20-year-olds, who are not home with their family because they're fighting in the trenches to protect that when there's a crisis anywhere in the world, that we have Israeli soldiers ready to stand up for us, that there should never be a Holocaust again, that we should be able to defend ourselves and never go quietly. And quietly doesn't just mean getting killed, it means speaking up for ourselves. So I urge you two things. First of all, if you are able to, and I'm happy to post the numbers, call your senators, your congressmen, and make sure they're standing with Israel. And tell them that they will not have your vote or your support if they throw Israel under the bus in a time like this when Israel tried all it could for calm, and always does. And speak up amongst your friends, and share on your social media what's going on in Israel. And may Hashem bless us, that as we get ready to receive the Torah again for the 333rd time, I'll speak about that tomorrow, 3333, when we get ready to celebrate the Torah, that Israel should be safe, and Israel should be protected, and Israel should have the calm we have here. And we should be proud and courageous to stand up. God bless you, and thanks for staying through this. I hope I'll keep you here, because I know that you care and love Israel. God bless you.